Imagine waking up every morning feeling like your brain is wrapped in fog, where remembering a simple word feels like solving a riddle, where fatigue isn't just tiredness, but a deep shutdown of your system. Now, here's the twist. This isn't early dementia, and it's not just aging. It's a lesser known effect of Sjögren's syndrome. We think of it as dry eyes and dry mouth, but beneath the surface, it hijacks the brain. Today, we're pulling back the curtain on the hidden neurological cost of this disease and why so many patients are dismissed until it's too late. ChatGPT said most people, even some doctors, will tell you Sjögren's is about dryness, dry eyes, dry mouth, maybe some joint pain if they've read a little more. That's where the story usually ends. And yet, if you talk to patients living with it, every single day, you'll discover that the dryness is only the surface, the easy part to describe. What doesn't get mentioned is the disorientation, the odd tingling in their hands or feet, the constant exhaustion that no amount of sleep seems to fix. These aren't side notes. They are part of the disease. When we reduce Sjögren's to a problem of moisture, we strip away the lived reality and leave patients with the impression that what they're experiencing must be in their head. Ironically, it is in their head, but not in the way they're being told. It's neurological. Consider a woman in her 40s who began forgetting simple words in meetings. She would reach for pen and instead get stuck with silence, her colleagues finishing the sentence for her. She was told she was stressed, maybe overwhelmed by work and family demands. Another patient, a retired teacher, described how she would walk into a room and have no recollection of why she went there. Her doctor chalked it up to normal aging. Both had Sjögren's. Both were experiencing neurological symptoms that had nothing to do with a lack of saliva or tears. What they were feeling was the immune system crossing a line, targeting not just glands, but nerve tissue, altering the way the brain communicates with itself. Autoimmunity rarely stays in neat compartments. We like to imagine the immune system as a guard dog trained to protect us from invaders. But in conditions like Sjögren's, the dog gets confused. It doesn't just bark at the stranger, it snaps at the family. The salivary and lacrimal glands take the first hits because they're accessible targets. But once that misfiring starts, there is nothing to stop the process from spilling over into the nervous system. The brain, the spinal cord, the peripheral nerves, they all sit in the line of fire. That's why patients report such a wide range of neurological symptoms, from migraines to cognitive lapses to full-blown neuropathy. The tragedy is that so much of this remains invisible to the medical community. Tests come back clean, MRIs look normal, standard labs don't capture the micro-inflammation simmering inside the nervous system. So patients get told to drink more water, use artificial tears, manage their stress, and maybe take an antidepressant. Meanwhile, the immune system keeps advancing. The longer it goes unrecognized, the more damage accumulates. And this is where the misunderstanding has real consequences. By confining Sjögren's to the realm of dryness, we've set up a trap. Patients don't feel validated, doctors don't dig deeper, and the disease continues unchecked. But when we start to listen, really listen, to what patients describe, we see a different picture. This is not a condition that stops at the surface. It moves inward. It rewires the way nerves function. It reshapes daily life in ways that are profound and often devastating. The reality is that the neurological face of sjogrens is not rare, it's just overlooked. It hides beneath labels like fatigue, depression, menopause, or simply getting older. And until we shift the narrative away from the dryness and toward the broader autoimmune landscape, we will continue to miss the very symptoms that matter most. ChatGPT said, when people with sjogrens say they feel like they're living in a fog, they're not exaggerating, and they're not using a metaphor just to describe being tired. They mean it literally feels as if a curtain has dropped between their thoughts and their ability to access them. They can be mid-sentence and suddenly lose the word they need. They can be following a conversation and realize the thread has slipped away like smoke. They sit at their desk staring at a task they've done 100 times before and cannot recall the steps to complete it. This isn't simple forgetfulness. It's the immune system interfering with the way the brain processes information. What's actually happening in the body is both invisible and powerful. In sjogrens, the immune system isn't just producing antibodies that attack moisture, producing glands. It's also generating an inflammatory storm that crosses into the nervous system. That storm disrupts how neurons talk to each other. Imagine a highway where every signal light is flickering, sometimes turning red, sometimes green, sometimes blacking out altogether. Traffic slows down and chaos builds. That's what brain fog looks like at the cellular level. Synapses fire less efficiently. Pathways that should be smooth become clogged with noise, and the person on the outside feels like their brain has gone into low power mode. Yet, because brain fog doesn't show up on a lab test, it gets dismissed. Patients are told they're stressed, that they're juggling too much, that they should meditate or cut back on caffeine. Others are told it's depression because who wouldn't be down if they're always tired and forgetful? Sometimes it's written off as menopause or just part of getting older. But stress and depression do not explain the sudden, sharp cognitive lapses that people with sjogrens experience. They don't explain why a 45-year-old can no longer keep track of simple numbers, or why a 38-year-old forgets her way home on a route she's driven for years. These aren't just mood changes. They are neurological events. The immune attack creates subtle but chronic inflammation in the brain. Microglia, the cells that act like custodians of the nervous system, become overactive. Instead of pruning and cleaning, they start eroding healthy connections. Neurotransmitters shift out of balance. The brain begins to operate in a haze, not because the person is mentally weak, but because their wiring has been biologically altered. This is why many patients describe feeling like they're trapped inside a mind that no longer obeys them. Recognizing this distinction is more than just semantics. If a patient is told they're simply stressed, they'll be sent home without treatment, left to wonder why their brain is betraying them. If they're told it's depression, they may be placed on medications that do little to restore cognitive function. But if a doctor understands that brain fog in sjogrens is a neurological symptom of autoimmune activity, it changes the response. It means addressing inflammation directly. It means exploring therapies that protect neurons, not just calm emotions. It means validating what the patient already knows, that something real is happening inside their head and it isn't their imagination. For patients, just having a name for it can shift the burden. They stop blaming themselves. They stop worrying they're developing dementia. They understand that what they feel is not weakness or aging, but part of the autoimmune landscape. And that understanding opens the door to interventions that may not cure, but can help preserve clarity, function, and dignity. Fatigue in Sjögren's is often misunderstood as ordinary tiredness, the kind that follows a late night or a long day. But what patients describe is something entirely different. It's not about needing more rest or more coffee. It's about a body that simply refuses to generate enough energy to function. They wake up exhausted, move through their day as if wading through heavy water. And even small tasks like showering or preparing a meal can feel monumental. This isn't laziness, and it isn't just being sleepy. It's a neurological shutdown triggered by the immune system itself. When the immune system is chronically activated, as it is in Sjögren's, it drains the very resources the body relies on for energy. Inflammation alters how mitochondria, the tiny power plants in our cells, produce fuel. Instead of running smoothly, these power plants sputter. Imagine trying to light up a city when half the power stations keep flickering off. Streetlights go dark, traffic signals stop working, entire neighborhoods lose electricity. That's what it feels like for someone with Sjögren's fatigue. Their system keeps brownout-ing. The nervous system relies on steady streams of neurotransmitters to keep communication flowing, but inflammation scrambles that balance. Serotonin, dopamine, and acetylcholine, all crucial for energy and motivation, get disrupted. So the signals that should push the body to stay alert and engaged come across weak and fractured. Patients describe it as if their brain is trying to move forward, but their body has slammed on the brakes. They want to participate in life, but they're trapped by a biological gridlock that won't release them. Doctors often miss the neurological basis of this fatigue because there isn't a lab test that neatly captures it. A patient can sleep 8, 10, even 12 hours and still wake up utterly depleted. They can exercise lightly and be bedridden for days afterward. This doesn't match the model of ordinary tiredness, so it's often chalked up to mood disorders or deconditioning. But the reality is that their nervous system is misfiring under the weight of immune dysfunction. Think of a symphony orchestra where the conductor has lost control. The violins are playing one tempo, the cellos another, the percussion dropping beats altogether. The result isn't music, but noise. In the same way, the nervous system under autoimmune attack loses its coordination. Signals to activate energy production don't arrive on time, signals to rest don't shut off properly, and the person is left feeling both overstimulated and completely drained. This kind of fatigue steals from every part of life. It blurs concentration, undermines memory, and makes physical activity punishing. People find themselves canceling plans, withdrawing socially, and losing their sense of identity because they can no longer trust their body to cooperate. They're told to push through it, to exercise more, to toughen up, but pushing only deepens the collapse because what they are experiencing is not a lack of willpower. It's a system-wide energy failure orchestrated by the immune system. Understanding fatigue this way reframes it from a personal weakness to a medical reality. It shows why pacing, inflammation control, and neurological support matter more than pep talks or sleep hygiene. It reveals why patients can look healthy from the outside while their inner wiring is running on emergency power. And most of all, it validates the lived truth of those who say fatigue is the most debilitating part of their disease, because they're not just tired. They're living inside a body whose grid keeps shutting down. One of the more hidden sides of sjogrens shows up not in the eyes or the mouth, but in the nerves that stretch throughout the body. Patients often begin with small, strange sensations, pins and needles in their toes, a sudden burning in their fingertips, or a patch of skin that feels oddly numb. At first, it seems trivial. They shake their hands, stretch their feet, and try to move on. But over time, those fleeting sensations become persistent. Tingling turns into burning, numbness spreads, and strength in the hands or legs begins to falter. This isn't clumsiness or bad circulation. It's peripheral neuropathy, the result of the immune system quietly attacking the wiring that carries messages between the brain and the body. The nervous system is like an intricate electrical grid. Every wire has insulation, every circuit has a pathway, and every current needs to flow cleanly. When sjogrens directs immune cells against those nerves, it's as if the insulation is corroding from the inside. The wires still conduct, but they spark, they misfire, or sometimes they stop conducting altogether. That's why a person might feel an electric jolt in their hands when they pick up a coffee cup, or why walking across a room suddenly feels like navigating uneven ground. The signals are garbled, and the body no longer interprets them correctly. For patients, the everyday consequences pile up quickly. A simple act like buttoning a shirt becomes frustrating because the fingertips can't quite sense the fabric. Typing on a keyboard turns into a test of coordination when the fingers can't trust the signals they're receiving. Even walking, something so automatic, can become uncertain when the feet lose track of the floor beneath them. Balance wavers, confidence falters, and what used to be effortless suddenly demands concentration and caution. These nerve damages often progress silently. Early tests may show nothing abnormal. Doctors may dismiss the complaints as minor or unrelated. But what's happening beneath the surface is a slow erosion of the nerve's protective sheath, a steady disruption of the electrical current that keeps the body connected to itself. Because the changes are gradual, they're easy to overlook until the dysfunction becomes undeniable. By the time numbness spreads widely or motor control weakens, much of the damage has already been laid down. And the cruel irony is that people with peripheral neuropathy from sjogrens often look healthy on the outside. They can smile, talk, and appear energetic, while inside they're navigating a body that no longer gives reliable feedback. The mismatch between appearance and experience makes it even harder to be believed. They're told it's aging, poor posture, or even anxiety. Meanwhile, the immune system continues to corrode the wiring unchecked. Understanding neuropathy as part sjogrens means recognizing that this disease doesn't stay on the surface. It infiltrates the body's electrical system. Every nerve is a potential target, and every garbled signal is a reminder that autoimmunity doesn't respect boundaries. For patients, it explains why a hand can suddenly drop a glass without warning, or why a leg buckles on a staircase. For doctors, it should serve as a warning to listen more carefully, to investigate sooner, and to acknowledge that tingling and numbness are not trivial complaints. They are early alarms that the wiring is fraying. And once those signals are gone, they're not easily restored. When someone in their 40s or 50s starts to forget names, lose track of conversations, or struggle to focus on simple tasks, the first thought isn't usually Sjögren's. Doctors tend to look for other culprits. They think of early dementia because memory lapses and slowed thinking seem to fit that pattern. Or they suspect multiple sclerosis, since MS is known to cause both cognitive problems and neurological symptoms. The patient is sent down long diagnostic pathways, sometimes undergoing spinal taps, repeated MRIs, or even aggressive treatments aimed at conditions they don't have. All the while, the true cause, autoimmune damage from Sjögren's, goes unnoticed. The mislabeling happens because cognitive decline in Sjögren's doesn't fit neatly into the boxes most physicians are trained to use. A patient reports that they can't follow a recipe they've known for years, or that they forget where they parked their car more and more often. Another says their brain feels like it's moving through molasses. Every thought slowed down, every decision harder to make. Instead of considering Sjögren's as the underlying driver, clinicians assume stress, aging, or one of the big neurological diseases. But those explanations don't account for the immune system's direct role in disturbing brain function. They don't account for how inflammation subtly alters connections between neurons, creating a picture of decline that looks like dementia, but isn't. The cost of this misunderstanding is steep. A patient told they may have early Alzheimer's lives under a cloud of fear, planning their life around the possibility of losing themselves entirely. Another who's misdiagnosed with multiple sclerosis might begin immunosuppressive therapies designed for MS, exposing them to side effects without actually targeting the root of their disease. Some even spend years chasing answers, bouncing between neurologists, psychiatrists, and primary care physicians, while their symptoms continue to progress. The result is frustration, despair, and a sense of invisibility. They know something is wrong, but no one seems able to connect the dots. The dots, however, are there. Cognitive decline in Sjögren's often appears alongside telltale autoimmune signs, dry eyes that don't improve with standard drops, dry mouth leading to dental issues, unusual fatigue that isn't relieved by rest, tingling in hands or feet that signals peripheral nerve involvement. When these pieces are viewed together, the picture shifts. The memory problems and slowed processing are no longer isolated mysteries. They're part of a broader syndrome. Recognizing this pattern early means that patients can be managed appropriately with treatments aimed at reducing inflammation and protecting the nervous system, rather than with medications that miss the target entirely. The tragedy is that so many people go years before that recognition happens. They live with the burden of being misunderstood, told they're depressed, anxious, or prematurely aging. Their careers may suffer when concentration fails. Their relationships strain under the weight of forgotten details and constant fatigue, and their confidence erodes. By the time someone finally identifies the autoimmune connection, they've often lost valuable years of clarity and function. Shifting this narrative requires awareness. It means doctors must widen their lens when faced with unexplained cognitive symptoms, especially in patients with signs of systemic autoimmunity. It means patients must be heard when they insist that what they feel is more than stress or age. And it means embracing the reality that Sjögren's is not just a disease of dryness, but one that can quietly reshape the brain. The earlier those dots are connected, the less likely patients are to endure years of misdiagnosis and unnecessary suffering, and the more likely they are. For many living with sjogrens, the story has been one of dismissal, misunderstanding, and years lost in uncertainty. But the conversation doesn't end there. There is hope not only in the treatments that already exist, but in the growing recognition that the neurological side of this disease deserves serious attention. Once the brain is acknowledged as part of the landscape, the approach to care changes. Doctors begin looking beyond dryness, and patients start receiving therapies that address the deeper layers of what's happening inside their bodies. Current treatment options aim to calm the immune system, reduce inflammation, and protect the nervous system from further damage. Medications like hydroxychloroquine and biologics can reduce the intensity of immune attacks, slowing the progression of symptoms. For neuropathy and cognitive fog, neurologists may use drugs that stabilize nerve activity or support neurotransmitter balance. These aren't perfect solutions, but they can lessen the daily burden and buy time for the brain and nerves to function more reliably. Even something as simple as early use of anti-inflammatory strategies can preserve clarity and keep fatigue from overwhelming daily life. Lifestyle interventions matter too. Diets rich in anti-inflammatory foods, consistent sleep patterns, careful pacing of activity, and gentle movement like yoga or walking can help regulate the nervous system and protect energy reserves. Stress management is not a cure, but it prevents the immune system from flaring harder than it needs to. Some patients find that mindfulness practices and cognitive exercises help strengthen the brain's resilience, giving them tools to work around moments of fog. Others rely on structured routines and external reminders that create stability when their memory falters. None of these erase the disease, but they give back a sense of agency. Research is moving forward as well. Studies are exploring how to shield neurons from autoimmune assault, how to repair damaged nerve pathways, and how to identify the earliest markers of neurological involvement. Scientists are uncovering the ways inflammation alters brain chemistry and how targeted therapies might restore balance. Each discovery adds another layer of possibility, where once the neurological symptoms of sjogrens were barely acknowledged, they are now becoming a field of study in their own right, opening the door to treatments designed specifically for the brain. The most powerful tool, though, is awareness. When patients know what to look for, when they recognize that persistent brain fog, unusual fatigue, or unexplained tingling might be part of sjogrens, they can advocate for themselves more effectively. When doctors understand that these symptoms are not just stress, depression, or aging, they can intervene earlier, protecting quality of life before the damage advances. Awareness transforms the narrative from one of confusion and delay into one of clarity and timely action. Knowledge, in this case, is not abstract power. It is the difference between years lost in misdiagnosis and years gained in function and dignity. It is the ability to preserve memory, protect independence, and maintain identity. For every patient who learns that their fog, their fatigue, or their numbness is not imagined but real, the path forward changes. And for every doctor who connects those dots, a life can take a new trajectory. One where the brain remains engaged, the body supported, and hope firmly intact.